Whoa, HD time. This is kind of convenient because it lets me actually use my phone. See, I do a lot of app work, Instacart and Uber Eats and things like that. So this will actually let me use my phone dedicated for orders so I can still catch work while being able to film. So I think I just wanted to talk about just instant gratification and how it's like just really messed with my life in general. So I think when I was like a kid, when I was growing up, they always called me very stubborn. I for some reason, like, that word always sticks out very well. I just remember being a regular kid, but if you had to ask like how I got along with other people or what others would say about me, I think people tend to always bring up the stuff that like stings first. Like if it's truth, if it hurts, that's the kind of stuff that really sticks with you. But stubborn was, I think, that key word. And I think a lot of it is rooted in just, my brain is just wired in a certain way, and I don't know what it is. You know, I've heard a lot of people on the internet like freaking, they'll call it ADD, ADHD. I don't know. I'm not very interested in figuring that out for myself, truth be told. You know, I've made pretty tremendous progress just reworking myself into a new person all on my own, that I actually think it'd be more complicated to try to diagnose something or figure out what it is. I'd rather figure out how I am, like how I kind of tick, and then go from there. Maybe it could be a little bit of a slower process, but who knows. But anyways, stubborn is the word that I think what people would describe me with when I was a kid. Oh, perfect. I just got an order right now. So, you know, let's keep the camera going. I think this is a good vibe we got here. But stubborn. See, even how I'm interacting with the camera and the work and everything, it's already kind of like, all right, we get it, dude. The reason for that is anything in my life that brought me like quick pleasure. You know, you take yourself when you're a kid, it's a lot of like video games, cartoons, snacks, you know, stuff that like avoiding chores, avoiding homework, the typical kid stuff. You know, it's literally like a Simpsons trope. And it was all fun and games, you know. I don't think anyone really questioned it too much. Maybe people still don't. It's like a kid's thing. You continue to get older. Now in your teenage years, it's like different things. You know, I got introduced to the concept of like, oh, there's pornography out there. Wow. Well, that's fun. Real quick, real instant. Okay. There's cigarettes out there. Ooh, okay, cool. Like my idols, and they get to fix everything. You feeling hungry? Go smoke a cigarette. You feeling tired? Go smoke a cigarette. You want like mysterious and cool? Go smoke a cigarette, even though you look like a lanky teenager. But of course, you know, avoid things that are good for you. Avoid sleep. Let's mess up your sleeping schedule as a teenager. Avoid healthy foods. You know, avoid basic responsibilities. Clean up after yourself. You know, 19, 20 years old and you're still behaving like this. And then when it becomes fun is when you get into adulthood, right? And so now I think my brain has been ticking like this for so long, where it turns to just like, ooh, I like this because it gives me XYZ result fast. You know, it gives me this pleasure fast. And it's not always obvious stuff. You know, as an adult, I also struggle with even more adult things, you know, like alcohol. Like that was a bit of a problem for a little bit for me. Not wanting to be home to deal with like the more like adult serious issues, you know, stuff that needed addressing, that I would use other things such as the alcohol to not address. And as an adult, you know, now you've been doing this for decades, right? Like the brain has been so used to like either going la 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 I'm not going to deal with it. So let's turn to some form of instant gratification, whether it's something as serious as the alcohol or something as like, no, we're just going to sit here and watch Netflix or YouTube for hours, versus like making real progress in life. In either scenario, they're both, I would say, equally as bad. It's just the ingredients change. As an adult, now that you've been doing this for decades, it becomes a real bitch to like get yourself tangled out of that. Now that I'm 30 and I'm thinking of like my 30s, like how awesome they're going to be, for sure. I feel very confident that my 30s are going to be very awesome. But, you start to think about the type of person that you want to become and how you're designing your life. And it's like, okay, I've been doing this for decades. Every time things start to go a little tough, a little uncomfortable, you turn to something. And the crazy thing is that it's always something new too, Like, congrats, you overcame certain things, alcohol addictions and, junk food. Like, that's probably another video that I'll make is, I eat very well, very cleanly now. I lost a lot of weight. But you'll always turn to something, This year, for example, it'd always be like, I'm going to fill it up with YouTube videos that don't really matter. You don't need to know every single fact about every single video game that you watched as a kid. But it's always something, And learning to undo all that is just a real headache. Well, thankfully I've developed a couple of strategies that I'll talk about in a second, only because I got to get to work and my camera battery is about to die. But thankfully I've gotten to the point where I can at least identify when I'm in, these instant gratifications, like pathways, I guess, are forming, and kind of how to handle it. Hey, the sun's out now. Fantastic. So learning to deal with instant gratification, how I started to be able to solve those problems, is the very first thing that I did was that I just accepted responsibility for everything in my life so far. So the exact circumstances, like my surroundings, my environment, it's all a product of me and my choices. Which is not to say, like, did I directly cause everything, every little tiny detail? Maybe not. Maybe that's getting too, like that's reading too much into it, maybe, Things happen how they happen for a reason. But things happen for you to grow, for you to learn. They don't happen to you. But in any case, I think accepting responsibility is, I think, just the cleanest way to accept your current circumstances without, falling back into, like, I guess, the cycle of, like, kind of woe is me. Why is this happening to me? That type of energy, I think, is what that solves. But after that, I have found 3 primary tools. Why did I say it like that? 3 tools that have essentially, like, are my go-to when things get dicey, which is to say, how much am I exercising, how is my food intake, and what time am I waking up at? So the reason you want to inflict adversity on yourself is because life is going to throw some real nasty hardballs at you. To be able to handle those in a good mood and a good energy, that's, I think, ticket. Because I think that's kind of where, like, people will start to, like, fail, and then they can't dig themselves out of this hole because of the way they handle these things. So doing it on yourself is kind of where I'm getting at with this. That way it not only helps you appreciate how to do the difficult things that you don't like doing, but it also prepares for the ones that are out of your control, the ones that are going to really, really, like, sting. But they're pretty straightforward. You wake up at an uncomfortable time. Say, if you normally wake up at 7 a.m., give 6 a.m. a shot. It doesn't mean you have to wake up at 2:30 in the morning. And I think eventually, if it winds up being that way, that you wake up very, very early, like those 4 a.m. hustlers, then cool. But waking up at an uncomfortable time, like, you'll start to notice, I think, an immediate difference If it feels like you don't have enough time in the day, simply just waking up earlier, which could even mean going to bed earlier. Well, that's another challenge right there, ain't it? Will certainly, you'll start to really appreciate like the amount of time and energy that you have available to you every day. In terms of your food intake, I will probably do a whole video on my weight loss / getting more in shape. But it boils down to, it's a little bit different for everyone, but it boils down to like just not overdoing it and being very conscious of your food choices. So as they say, good input equals good output, bad input equals bad output. For me, I would always turn to like snacks and overeating and stuff when I was stressed out or things weren't going my way. I have several points in my life where I've destroyed a whole box of cookies. And so stopping that, eating quality foods, again, I'll go more into depth, I think, in a different video. That's also a form of self-inflicted adversity. Sometimes when things get real nasty, I will straight up do a fast for a whole day, because it's like, hey, if you fast for a whole day, there is no time or energy to worry about nonsense. There is no like, oh my God, I'm worried about this thing that hasn't happened, or what should I do? I feel so overwhelmed. You'll be hungry to the point of like, there's no time for that. What are you doing? This is the exact decision that you have to make. I'm telling you right now, because you're that hungry that here you go. This is the exact choice you should make. It'll be crystal clear when you're on a fast. Doesn't mean that's like a permanent thing, but just being uncomfortable in that little nugget of the fast is going to give you clarity. The third thing, however, is the exercise. So I exercise every day. When I first started kind of on my journey, even doing just like 10 push-ups for like how I was at the time, overweight, sad, lost without purpose, that was like a big change for me. And probably part of the weight loss video, or I'll do a video on just exercising, doing that also to an uncomfortable level for your current fitness level, is also a big deal. Like now I work out twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. Mostly all just body weight stuff, but a little bit of weight stuff too. And like sometimes I trip out because it's like the amount of like strength I've gotten through just like being consistent is amazing to me. When I say to your comfort level, doing fitness to your comfort level, I mean, I think here's a good example of it. Try to think of something that's really stressing you out, something that's really like kind of like, oh, okay, this is like bugging me. Now, think about it in the moment, and then afterwards, do maybe like anywhere from like 3 to 5 minutes of some type of like heart pumping exercise for your level. If you've never done push-ups in your life, I'm not saying suddenly go full David Goggins, go on a mile run, do 50 push-ups or something. But no, just sit with that thing that makes you uncomfortable. Think about it. Do that little bit of like enough to just kind of get your heart pumping. And then think about that uncomfortable thing afterwards, after you do the exercise, and see how you feel afterwards, like what shifts, you know? Those are the 3 things that I always go back to ensure that I'm constantly dealing with things, not procrastinating, making sure that I'm always in like a good mood, and building discipline. So I'm not the type to think like I do difficult things because I enjoy being miserable. Like that's not the goal at all. I think the goal here is to just become so attractive, so like 100% the dream version of myself, that I just start naturally attracting everything that I want towards me. And that involves doing these difficult things, because that's what I've noticed stops a lot of people. Hardship shows up and you have to always be ready to handle it. And I think a lot of these uncomfortable things, which is why we turn to the instant gratification stuff, is because we want to avoid them, because we're just programmed to not be uncomfortable. Like as soon as uncomfortableness shows up, and it'll show up in different ways, it's like we're programmed to just immediately shift to what we're used to. That's how we're wired. But through focusing on those three things, and also like that, like, I guess it's almost like a drastic fourth one, that going on a fast fix, it ensures that I'm always in a good mood, always appreciating, like, as much as I can, the good stuff and the bad stuff, and that I'm just reaching a connection, which I think is how I'll end this, with a voice inside me that I like to call my conscience. And reaching that voice inside of me is, I think, the other version of me, the best version of me. It's deep in here, and the only way to reach consistently that voice, it almost feels like it comes from a higher power, is how I like to describe it, is through ensuring those three things are flowing along. You know, what time are you waking up yet? Are you sticking to how you should be eating? And are you sticking to your exercise? And through achieving clarity with that inner voice, right? That version of myself that isn't driven by desire, that isn't driven by quick fixes, because that's how I've always operated. That's the instant, like, gratification version of me. The better version of me that isn't driven by those things is inside here. And I reached a point where I can access it and reach a flow state. And I'll still hit bumps in the road where for a little bit I'll lose my connection with it till I have to consciously work towards reconnecting with it. But I do believe that just if you're able to have constant access to that voice inside of you, you're able to have that make choices for you versus the quick fix self instant gratification voice. I think that's how you become the dream version of yourself, which is kind of what this life is all about. No, we're all here for a certain amount of time, so you might as well do like a damn good job at it. And it's not defined by entirely by, like, you know, surface level things such as like, oh, how much money do you make, or how much, you know, like, how ripped is your body. It's kind of like, it's everything. Your happiness for yourself, your love for yourself, how you interact with your loved ones, how much money are you bringing in. It's all of those things, and making sure that you're always at the ideal version of yourself as you tackle those things. So that'll do it. I think that went on for a little bit longer than I had hoped, but maybe it's a good thing. Again, listening to your conscience, that inner voice, that's how I got this video. And I think it's always like a guide to live a very excellent life moving forward. But we're gonna make these like a weekly thing, I think. And I'll see you guys in the next video.